in chemo for over 10 years. So her and her partner, her wife's daughter is 17, 18, so I think just turned 18, going off to college. I think that's what she was waiting for. Yeah. Well, you see everywhere that the draped ribbon is? Yeah. It was checking about, we haven't been singing the hymns. So I think last week they just started that. So the rise in body and spirit is okay. And the hymns are in. Yeah, we haven't. It's 10:30. Okay. Good morning. And welcome to First Unitarian Church of Providence, where we love beyond belief. Today we are pleased to welcome our guest minister, Reverend D.L. Helfer. Reverend Helfer is non-binary and in general avoids boxes that trap them into this or that. Instead, they search for possibility, for deeper truths, and share those glimmers of possibility with others. Reverend D.L. is presently pursuing a master's of social work and serving as a hospital chaplain. They hail from Southern California, but now call Providence home. They share their home with their beloved partner and their 20-year-old cat. Please join me in reciting the words of our chalice lighting that are written in your program. This light burns also in our hearts and lights our path toward harmony, justice, and hope for all.
Good morning. I begin this morning with the words of Reverend Kathleen McTeague. You who are brokenhearted, who woke today with the winds of despair whistling through your mind, come in. You who are brave but wounded, limping through life with every step, come in. You who are fearful, who live with shadows hovering over your shoulders, come in. This place is sanctuary, and it is for you. You who are filled with happiness, whose abundance overflows, come in. You who walk through your world with lightness and grace, who awoke this morning with strength and hope, who have everything to give, come in. This place is your calling, a riverbank to channel the sweet waters of your life, the place where you are called by this world's need. Here we offer in love. Here we receive in gratitude. Here we make a circle from the great gifts of breath, attention, and purpose. Come in. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join us for hymn number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
Sharing this time Being together here is a gift to us all. We take a moment now to greet and welcome each other live and in person, and eventually to those online, in whatever way you feel comfortable. Greetings.
I'm Allison Green, and I am a member of the Prudential Committee, First U's Governing Board. Although I've been a lifelong Unitarian Universalist and a very active member of several UU churches as a religious educator, a member of various committees, and sometimes a committee chair, even a staff member at 3 congregations, until fairly recently, I never ever thought I would be on a church board. What I love about congregational life is the community relationships, spiritual growth and learning, and the feeling of sanctuary that today's guest preacher will be talking about. But a church board, that's about policies and budgets. These areas are not really my thing, but last year I was invited to join the PruCom in the role of liaison to the spiritual development ministries, which include music, religious education, and worship, all areas in which I have a lot of passion. While serving on the PruCom, especially during these tumultuous times, is a huge commitment, I'm very, very happy to be involved in this way. But what I didn't know when I signed up for this is that as part of my role, I would be expected to serve on the Budget Committee. Again, budgets. I came into my first budget meeting earlier this year with some trepidation. What do I know about helping to craft the church budget? I only recently in my adult life got a handle on my own personal finances. But the budget meetings so far have been way more interesting than I was anticipating. I realized at our first meeting that what a church budget really is a statement of what the congregation values. In our operating budget, the largest category by far is staff salaries and benefits, and so it should be, as these are the people doing so much of the work of this congregation day in and day out, maintaining such excellence in each of their roles. I was glad to learn that all our staff members are now paid according to the UUA's fair compensation guidelines, and to find easy agreement among the budget committee that it would be important to include in next year's budget a cost of living increase that attempts to be realistic about the current economic realities of high inflation. Drilling down into the non-staff related expenses in our budget, some of the larger areas include religious education, music, and social justice ministries. So many of the things that connect us to our faith here on Sundays and throughout the week. It has been heartening to find that the proposed budget truly aligns with so much of what I value here at First U. And as I think about my own personal budget, I find myself wanting to take a closer look at the distribution of where I'm putting my money. If my personal budget is a statement of what I value, is this church that I love so dearly getting an appropriate portion of my dollars? I would say that I value my church more than, say, subscribing to all the streaming services, for example. I hope that you'll join me during this stewardship drive this year to reflect on the value that First U holds for you and your family, and to increase your pledge if you are able. And now please join me in reading the church covenant, which is printed in your order of service. We, the members of the First Unitarian Church of Providence, with respect for the worth and dignity of each person, with honor and light we know by many names, and with gratitude for our deep connection to each other and to the larger web of existence, covenant to walk together in our search for truth, seeking the paths of wisdom, compassion, and justice.
Thank you, Allison. And online people who are joining us, we have not forgotten you. So if I can ask the congregation to once again rise in body or spirit, turn to the camera in the back and say, hey. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. We now hear the joys and sorrows of the people in our congregation as written in the book at the back of the meeting house. Our partner church in Transylvania carved that beautiful candlestick pedestal for the large candle from which we light all our individual candles of joy and sorrow. A candle of sorrow for the continued war in Ukraine. I am especially sad in the deaths of innocent Ukrainians and the destruction of their country in this war with Russia. A candle of sorrow for all the trans and gender exploring youth that are the targets of and will be harmed by legislation being passed state by state, including here in Rhode Island. A candle of sorrow for the recently departed Fernando Moran, who passed suddenly and left a note in the hearts, a hole in the hearts who loved him, that their hearts and lives are made whole again. In case you haven't heard this news, a candle of sorrow for the passing of Kelly Smith on April 1st. Kelly's life was a gift to this world, love and healing to Sam and Carson, to Kelly's parents, and to her sister Jillian. Lighting a candle of pride and joy for my son John Rosenbaum, who was surprised with receipt of the Milken Education Award this week. He teaches middle school social studies at Segway Institute in Central Falls. A candle of sorrow for the passing of Kelly Smith, who gave music, color, and joy to our community and lives, holding Sam and Carson in our hearts. A candle of love for my father, who I lost last December. Please welcome my good friend Kelly, who I am sad to have lost a few days ago. I love you both forever. A candle of sorrow. It is a dark day now that the shining light of Kelly Smith has been put out. She was a positive force at UU, First U, and will be dearly missed. And as these things so often happen, April 1st also had some candles of joy for our minister Liz's birthday, as well as my father's. He would have been 105.
As I was thinking about today's meditation, as I was preparing and contemplating about sanctuary, I thought of all the people around the world yearning for that safety. And our meditation by the Reverend Joe Cherry, entitled A Peacemaking Prayer, honors that. And it goes like this. The history is complex, and the politics are intense, and the fear and the anger are overwhelming, and the future is not yet clear. But glimpses of a hopeful vision will not be bombed into oblivion by anyone. In prayer, we call to mind the peacemakers, neighbors of differing faiths with different histories and different politics and different emotions, who find room for each other in their hearts and in their dreams and in their lives. Those who hold firmly to a vision of peace and of justice anywhere in the world, but especially today in Ukraine. Spirit of life and spirit of love, be present with all who are suffering terribly from the violence in Ukraine. Lift up the hearts of those who fear. Inspire courage among the peacemakers. Be present with the political leaders, ensuring a retreat from violence and a procession towards peace. Guide the hands of those who are caring for the injured, the hungry, and the grieving. And open our hearts to compassion. Remind us of our complicity and our responsibility, and lead us toward a generous engagement, and move us always towards a vision of peace. And as we enter into a time of silent meditation together, I invite you to briefly first raise your hand or stand if you've lost someone in the past year so that you may be recognized. Let us enter a time of silent meditation together. Actually, I'm telling you to sit only to invite you to rise in body for spirit. For hymn number 145 is Tranquil Streams. There's been too many times in the past many months when the world is in turmoil, and I've wondered, where is God in all of this? And in those moments, I'm not imagining in any way a white bearded man in the sky, but a constellation of light, of love, with connections and interconnections too many to count. And I wonder in that moment why love is not enough. I wonder how we humans have become so polarized and so separate. And if there's a path to get back to that place of deep and humble openness, and if we might perhaps find that our way back to that web which holds us all. And this isn't a pondering unique to me or even to this time. As we move towards the truth that we live in a time of dislocation from that guiding light, when millions upon millions of refugees are wandering the world, when we imprison those who we fear or who challenge the system, when borders are closing out of fear, and when false prophets are telling lies in order to line their own pockets. These are important and necessary questions. And I'm reminded that when humankind finds themselves here, a few responses tend to occur. First, there's a sense of outrage at this truth of our world. How can it be so bad? And when did it become so, we ask ourselves. Next, an anger arrives at the external forces that we hold responsible for these harsh realities. And then most typically, and this is hopeful, a hope for an exodus from what has been to what might be in the future. And what I find, I guess, both comforting and maybe worrisome is that we've found ourselves here many times before, at the edge of a major shift in consciousness and alive to the deep need of the world for change, at the precipice of so much possibility, when our eyes have been opened and when we can see clearly both our own culpability, but also, if enough are mobilized, a path forward. And this is where Moses found himself many thousands of years ago. The Israelites had been freed from captivity in Egypt. But like so many other dark-skinned refugees with newfound freedom, he quickly discovered that freedom didn't mean opportunity. As Moses and the Israelites had wandered the desert, they searched always for that place to call home. And of course, this all has special resonance right now, right? So near the end of those 40 years, right before freedom, with a high level of despair and an entrenched belief that all was lost, God finally speaks to Moses, instructing Moses to build this temporary worship structure called a wilderness tabernacle. And he instructs him to build it in the middle of the desert. Now, God's commands about this tabernacle were very specific. The core of the tabernacle, a temporary tent structure, was nonetheless ample for communion with God. But its purpose was really twofold. It meant that no longer would Moses be the mediator between God and the people, but instead, in the way we practice now, that each individual was free and encouraged to find their own connection with divinity. And two, and this is important, the wilderness tabernacle was temporary in nature. Nothing about the structure was meant to be permanent. It could be deconstructed and reconstructed with relative ease when moving became necessary. And it's worth understanding both aspects of this quite clearly. The first, the direct connection with God, with spirit, whatever one calls it, that is more than ourselves alone. that laid the groundwork for so many religions, including Unitarianism, because it was born into being out of the understanding that nothing is needed, no intermediary is needed for us to discover our deepest truths. This shift in understanding also took the power away from a few individuals and gave it back to the entirety of the people. And that's the story, the core that all religious scripture kind of comes back down to. There's always some construct about how to be in the world, but most scripture is a story of humanity moving through a place of suffering to one of safety. And the endings of scripture are beautifully consistent. Empires fail, the rich lose their way, and people themselves hold the key to the kingdom. And back to the second point. Church, synagogues, mosque, any place that's a physical structure where we meet to worship, that's all it is, a structure. This is a particularly beautiful structure, I acknowledge. But when I come here on Sunday to be refreshed and renewed, that's great. If the music and the stories and the presence of your beloveds does that for you, great. And so Liz invites me back. I'm not encouraging you not to be here. I want you here. But the other 6 days of the week, this sense of groundedness is just as available to you. Because while the Wilderness Tabernacle was radical for its time, it was also radical for ours. To suggest that beautiful buildings or any permanent structure is not at the center of religious worship, that people could find their own faith and connection anywhere, that's radical. And in these times of flux and change, when what we know seems ever less certain, that reassurance that sanctuary is not some specific place in time. It's not only 10:30 on Sunday morning. It means we can drop into that sense of safety anytime we want it or need it. And I don't mean to minimize the time in which we find ourselves or the extent to which pain is acutely and appropriately felt. It's very real. I have found myself for a couple of years, at least as long as the pandemic, struggling with this too. And I usually find mystery walking in the woods or by the ocean, as so many Rhode Islanders do, right? And I'm so angry all of the time, or sad at all that is wrong in the world. And that despite my belief that there's no God to save us from ourselves, I struggle to return to that place of peace, to sink into that place that opens me up to possibility and light. And I know I'm not alone there, that so many of us are stuck in that place of anger or loss or numbness or fear, and we wait for this Sunday to be reassured that all is not lost. I'm here to tell you it's not. It is not lost. Every faith tradition, including Unitarian Universalism, has rituals for loss, as we do for hope. You have a beautiful chalice down there. I'm not going to look down because I'm a little afraid of heights. But it makes me think of the first chalice, that it was created by Austrian artist Hans Deutsch for the then fledgling Unitarian Service Committee, an arm of our faith tradition that was active in Lisbon to help those fleeing the Nazis find safe haven. Our chalice has become our symbol. You see it. You see it in jewelry. You see it on tattoos. I've seen it razored into the back of people's hair, on bumper stickers. So many places you see the chalice and you know you're home, right? You know you're welcome here. But we don't need to be here to feel sanctuary. That chalice near the end of World War II It was often on a fence post. It told that stranger walking by, you're welcome here and you're safe. It's a message that matters right now. It's a message to keep sharing. You know, as a transhuman, but a transhuman with a lot of privilege, but still a transhuman, I'm scared and I'm triggered a lot of the time right now. But I'm far from alone, and there's so many of us that need sanctuary, a sense of safety, and that ability to find it. You, First Unitarian of Providence, have done one of the best examples I know. It's a couple of years old now, but you made sanctuary tangible, right? You opened your building and you opened your hearts and you made that sanctuary tangible to people that needed it. You are that light. You offered hope to another. When we give of ourselves this way, our own light brightens. So when you feel lost or despairing, when you wonder about what might be, when you need sanctuary or you have the strength to be that for another, it's right there. All kidding aside, I want you to keep showing up on Sunday mornings because it's good to gather together. But the worship, the connection with divinity, you take that out the door with you when you leave. When we stop, when we breathe, and when we open our hearts, when we cry, that light reveals itself. Sanctuary is with you all the time, everywhere you go. So let that light fill you, and then take that beauty and that respite and that safety and go pour yourself out into the world. In this way, we all know love, and in this way, we all know sanctuary. May it be so.
We are a spiritual community who govern ourselves through democratic process and who support ourselves through our own collective generosity. We take responsibility for how we conduct ourselves as individuals and as a community. And love and generosity are among our core spiritual values. Our annual pledges are the expression of generosity, which provides most of the financial support for the mission of this church. And our weekly offering is a symbolic extension of that support. We invite you to join in the spirit of love and generosity, and as always, thank you for all that you give, all that you do, and all that you are. We have just a few invitations this week. Don't forget, in your order of service, there is the Easter flower registration, and we ask that to be into the church office by Wednesday, April 6th. That's this Wednesday coming up. The next Path to Membership class is forming and will meet Saturday morning, April 9th, and Sunday, April 10th after worship. These sessions are for those who want to know more about what it means to be a member of First U. You can learn about Unitarian Universalism in general and First U in particular. And you can meet other people who are interested in joining, as well as members of the staff and various church leaders. Speak to Jen Nardone. Jen, can you wave in the back of the church there so everyone knows who she is? And you can find her in the Newcomers Cafe in the parlor behind the fireplace. It's a joy to also announce that another David Smith weekend is coming, April 28th to May 1st. We need singers to sign up. A member of the music committee will be in the atrium after the service to help you register, or you can call or email Nancy in the office. And one of the very happy volunteers, the last time David was here, I will tell you that you will not regret it. And don't forget to read the First U Times, which is sent every Friday afternoon for all the important information you need about upcoming events and news. And now, if you can stand in body or spirit and sing our last hymn, number 300, with heart and mind.
As we leave this hallowed place, may our feet remember its feel, so that wherever we walk, we know ourselves to be on hallowed ground. May we know that we are kin with every soul, every star, every stone, and every leaf of grass. May our words be gentle and our touch be kind. Blessed be.
Please join me in the words of our chalice extinguishing. we carry the flame of peace and love and hope until we meet again.